Hello everybody, Janet Urban here, founder of Friends in Film. Welcome to our podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to give you insights that you will not learn anywhere, not in film school, not online, not from anybody, even people on film sets will not know what I'm teaching you because we have studied how to go very fast into the film industry and create a career out of it. And that is what this podcast is about, and that is what the A-List program is about, which is our main flagship program that all these people all over the world are doing to work in the film industry. So enjoy today's podcast, and thank you so much for listening. How about just talking about your accomplishments?
Biggest accomplishments, I guess, screening the Marcel the Shell here yesterday. That was a pretty big highlight.
Yeah. First of all, being nominated for an Academy Award.
Yeah.
I mean, your film being nominated for an Academy Award, what an amazing thing. Okay, so tell me the trajectory of that, just a little bit, like when you realized, like, oh my God, it's actually going to be nominated. Did you get a phone call? I mean, what happened?
My excitement for it started mounting when I finally got to see a cut of the project.
Oh, yeah.
I got to go to that. That was pretty exciting, and getting to see the film and all, and seeing, okay, this is a good project.
But did you think that it was a small, what did you think? Did you think it was more like a
It felt like a little project where like some folks are doing, and like, you know, they had some names attached. It was like, this could go somewhere. There's some potential here, but you never know. You know, it wasn't a studio project or something like that.
First time you worked with Liz Holm, and she was one of the producers. And she has done a lot of indie films in the past.
Yeah, yeah, she's had a lot of projects go to festivals and stuff like that.
So you knew that you wanted to develop that relationship.
Yes.
Because you want to do more feature films, yeah?
Yeah, and she was a wonderful producer to work with. She was the one who, I mentioned last night in our Q&A, she was the one who came up with doing the show and tell every night, the night before, so that everyone would be on the same page with what the director wanted and all. So she was a huge advocate for us in the art department as well.
Oh, can you talk about this show and tell?
Yeah, so basically, because Marcel was such a complicated piece to piece all of the moving parts together and decide what was going to be stop motion, what was going to be real life, whatever. All of the props, all of the things that Marcel interacts with had to be kind of tested out and make sure that they would do what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Early on, once we started filming, we started noticing that the director's style was very kind of in the moment, sort of, which made it tricky for us to prepare all of these complicated things that had to work properly and not hold up the day.
Yeah.
So what we would do, and what Liz Holm came up with to kind of help that, was we would prepare all of those things and present them at RAP the day before we went on to shoot them, so that the director and producers and the DP could see like how the tennis ball rolls or how you know, the spoon flips, and we could get feedback that night, troubleshoot it, pick stuff up in the morning if we needed it, and be ready to go.
So smart.
So yeah, it's something I've implemented that on other projects too, where it's like, you know, usually that's something that's all ironed out in prep and stuff, but sometimes if it's a tight schedule or whatever, you know, you gotta fit it in there, work with the AD and scheduling and stuff, and you know, it helps things go smoother once the cameras are up and the lights are up and actors are in makeup. You don't want your little prop or something holding the whole day up.
You get on a project with really amazing people that have a lot of experience and a long track record, and this is what they do. And together in the troubleshooting process of making the film happen, you discover these little ways of operating that you keep with you for your entire career that propel you to get even more work because you've got this way of working from other amazing people. So how did that now impact how you work with other projects, commercials, feature films?
It's gotten me a lot more comfortable with just presenting what I have for the project and being open to feedback on it and all, you know, being confident that I'm bringing something good and have some options in my back pocket if they want something different, but getting ahead of that. Not pushing it off and, we'll talk about it later, this or that, whatever. No, I want the answers as soon as possible. I want to be ahead of this stuff so I can be problem solving and troubleshooting ahead of time, because there's always going to be last minute things that you have to handle. So the
Yes,
more you can
wanna,
get ahead of everything else, the better prepared for success you'll be. The more aware that every other department's going to be of what's going on. Yeah, it just allows for a better environment on the project, which is nice. It's not the main goal. We're there to film a project, but if we can have a good time doing it, that's great.
You seek out that information so that you're prepared, and then every day you break it down on a day-by-day basis and seek out what needs to be happened. And then you make a mental list of the conversations that need to happen and the trials.
I usually make a physical list because there's so much going on. I have a notebook with me all the time. Mm-hmm. Anything that comes up that that I'm responsible for, that someone else is responsible for, and I need to check in with a week later or something, any of that, I write it, physical, pen, paper, so that then I can check it off after once it's done. I've learned that's the way I can keep myself accountable, just because
I can see that.
My department, there are so many little moving parts and details, and this thing the right color, and this coming from a different vendor or something, so it's wild to think that I could keep that all in my brain.
You pick up these ways of operating in your job that make you totally complete in what you're able to deliver, as well as everybody has confidence in you, and it goes smooth. Okay, it goes smoothly. You don't forget anything, and you're bringing also production on board so that they know what to expect and what everything costs. But when we wrap it all up together, it's like you got to work with this guy. So it's many moving parts.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the elements of what you've learned that makes you exceptional. Really, that's what it is. It's like you're like butter to work with.
Yeah, people love to work with me. So.
But why?
I would look at it. So you know how when we're starting out PAing, we're putting together a backpack with the basic tools that we need. Yeah. Pens and Sharpies and
the Sharpies, maybe the
call
the super
sheet,
glue,
the little tools that allow you to do your job really well. For me, as I moved into art department, I was building an actual toolbox with things like screwdrivers and a measuring tape and tools to make me do my job even better. So this sort of thing we're talking about could be looked at as kind of a mental or a virtual toolbox where I pick up little tools like have a show and tell with the director the night before. That's a tool. It goes in my toolbox and I bring it to the next job.
Yes.
Have a conversation with the producers so they know why we're doing something. That is a tool that I will then hold on to, put in my toolbox, and pull out on the next job to make that job go smoothly. I think that's what it is. It's these little skills and techniques and ways of saying things that you pick up along the way, and then you can pull it out on the next job when you need that.
I think that you develop these tools by being super aware, but also working with really great people.
Yes.
They might suggest certain ways of operating, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's totally the way that we should do it. And then when you work with really great people, you establish your tools or your processes that makes the project go smoothly. Mm-hmm. And then when you work with people that are not thinking in this way, that might be newer or just never been exposed to it, then you bring these tools so that the project can go smoothly because this is how it needs to go. And you can come forward with such confidence. No, we need to have a show and tell this evening for tomorrow to go smoothly. Yep. And they're like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
and they're
usually.
like, I love this guy. I love this guy. Or, the producers, let me explain to you why we need these to do it this way and why it's costing what it needs to cost so that we can avoid these things. Right. And they're like, they would never think of having a conversation.
I never followed through that far and thought about that. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing. Each project is different, has different requirements, so you're going to use different tools for each project. Yeah. There's certain things where, like you're saying, talking to the producers about getting ahead of something and explaining why we're doing this now in order to avoid this later or save something. There's also, it's nice to have some of these tools just as a backup in case a situation comes up. in a project.
Yeah.
That you're like, okay, I've been here before.
Yeah.
And here's how we handled it last time, so let's try that again. And just having an open mind, like you said, being open to other people, experienced people, bringing in a new way of doing things and not being set in your way and this is how I do it every time kind of thing. That's gonna run into problems. So you gotta be open.
Do you have any examples of that?
Even the show and tell thing is not gonna apply to every project. There, you know, if it's
you might not have something the next day that you need to show and tell.
Yeah.
I think the gist of it is really the picking up these ways of operating in a job that makes you exceptional.
Yeah.
Like this whole program is becoming exceptional. And what draws people to you in the film industry is being like, oh, they are really good. And then they put you number one on their list.
Yes.
So making that happen is really what this program is about.
What I love about the program, it's kind of, you know, the Spark Notes fast track of that. So it's kind of bringing together other folks' knowledge and experience and kind of giving the cheat notes. But a lot of this stuff is something you're just going to pick up along the way. And you just got to get in there and get started and see what works for you, see what might not work for certain situations and stuff. Yeah. So.
You don't get invited into Academy-nominated level films and working with people like this if you're not operating in a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's what's exciting about this, because you can be working in reality and just work in reality TV for your whole career and never get these opportunities. Yeah. If you could put in a nutshell, what's the difference between somebody that gets pigeonholed doing, like, say, just corporate video or reality TV and somebody that's giving these opportunities? What are you doing that's giving people this confidence in you?
Being aware, having a personality that people like to work with.
Okay, let's talk about personality. It's like one at a time.
That's a huge thing.
Personality.
I was telling you earlier, I'm at the point now where I'm getting to see other PAs. I'm getting to see other folks, how they operate on set. I'm the production designer on these projects.
Yeah.
And so there's people, you know, under me who I get to see what stands out, what makes certain people memorable, what makes me want to call people or help people on these projects. And you know what might make me be like, okay, yeah, they're here today, but you know, I don't need to work with them again.
So what is it?
A huge part of that is personality. There are very good, very talented people, I'm sure that you work with as well, who are awful people.
So
some of them
negative
get
attitudes.
work, but that's negative attitudes. But they're not someone I'm calling for work. That's a huge factor of it. But then there are people who might not know as much, who might be a little more green, or they're a little fresher getting into it, but they have passion. They want to learn. They want to get in there and know what this is, what you do, how you got into it. They're passionate about it. And so those are the people that I want on my team. Those are the people that stick in my head and make an impression.
Yeah.
And that then next time I see them on set, I'm excited to see them. Nobody's perfect.
You just need to be passionate, positive, problem-solving.
Yeah. Proactive and always wanting to learn more. Because, I mean, it's a given that there's always going to be new things to learn and new stuff to do. But the folks who are rigid and feel like they know it all at this point and there's nothing new to learn, whatever, what is there to gain there? And
what kind of confidence can you have in them that they're going to solve the problems that are going to come up on set next week?
The new issues, the new problems, the new tech that we have to deal with, the new, you know, situation. If they're stuck in their way and they only do it one way, they're not going to be able to handle that.
You know, when people, they might like you, but when they're looking at bringing in new people for their team, they're thinking about, okay, I got this shoot, it's coming up, or I'm gonna have to do all these things. And they go through the mental list in their head. Who do I need to have? Who's the best person to have on this shoot with me?
Who was really good at this the last project?
Yeah.
Who handled this thing the last time that did it really well and with a good attitude?
Yeah.
I want that person.
And that is a fascinating concept to explore, because this is what makes you successful. It's getting people to constantly, on every single job go like, oh, they're the person to have, because you show them again and again on every single shoot that you're on it, that you're anticipating what needs to be done, to be ready. You're having their back.
Yeah. Those people impact if I get called again. So I need to be sure that the folks I'm bringing on are good, make people feel good, are there to have a good time and get the job done.
Yeah.
The folks who are going to make me look good, they're the ones who get called.
Yeah. So how can I be sure, because I want that amazing career, how can I be sure to be seeing things in this light and be being that person?
Watch other people. What makes the people around who everyone else on this set had to, get there from a connection or something like that. What are they doing that makes them stand out? When you're having conversations with people, what is it about them that stands out to you? I'm starting to take notes more and adjust how I interact with other folks too, based on how they've interacted with me or what little tidbits I've picked up from those people that then go in my toolbox.
Oh, I see. You're starting to, even this far in your career, start to really kind of analyze your own performance, your own communication, as well as other people's, so that you can be better, be smoother. Yeah?
Yeah, it's always about improving. There's always going to be something new to learn or a better way to do something or whatever.
Yeah.
So, if I'm with certain folks and they say something or do something a certain way that I like and that stands out to me, I'll borrow that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the same token, if people are doing something that irks me or like doesn't feel quite right or something, I'll go through and be like, is that something that I do too? Is that something I maybe should kind of adjust or something too? Because I don't want to have that impact on other people.
I know that in the beginning of my career, they would say, can you do this? And I'd be like, no, that's not a good idea, without providing a solution.
Yeah. You never want to say no. You want to say, we could try that, or we could do this. Yes. You always want to have a solution.
Two options, How you approach the job, the way that you plan, the way that you think, you're passionate about the job, the team that you've assembled to do the job so that you guys are really good and tight and handle problems coming up. And this has allowed you to then work with top people that have accelerated this even faster, because then they have their ways of operating.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, oh, wow, that's a great idea to do the show and tell about this thing and to say things in this manner.
Yeah.
And you get better and better and better.
Yeah. And then you work with people who have worked with you already and they know they can trust you. This feature I just wrapped, the cinematographer on it was someone who I've worked with for years, off and on. As soon as I saw that, I was like, this is going to be a great project.
So you're both like up and coming in your career, and now you're doing a feature film together.
Yeah, a union feature.
And you both learned so much along the way by being attached to really great projects and really great people.
Yeah. And then being able to walk into that scout, have that rapport with Chris already, and set everyone else at ease. They're like, oh, these guys know each other. They've done things together. They've been through things together.
Yeah.
This is gonna go well.
Yeah.
So it puts everyone else at ease too.
How you keep getting better, how you keep adding to your toolbox.
Yeah.
Marcel Shell was a couple years ago, 2 years ago?
It was 2019. We filmed.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Interesting. And now it's just taking off.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how you are today with the feature film that you just did. Can you describe the growth in the way that you do your job?
Yeah, I mean, those are great examples because it was the same designer I was working with, which is an example of, her knowing that I'm going to deliver and going to get the project done, and the successful relationship there. Big things that I've learned in the meantime, it's just getting better at my craft and getting more understanding of what I'm responsible for. When I was on Marcel, I didn't know I was supposed to be handling the budget, so it wasn't something that I asked for. They handled it within, other folks in the department.
But you were supposed to be.
But yeah, as the art director, I'm supposed to be in charge of the budget.
Yeah.
So that was something right from the get-go on this project I was on top of.
Yeah.
I was asking the questions I needed to ask to get the information. I was doing the breakdown to put the budget together. I was on that.
So give me advice if I'm newer. Like I say, I'm a year in and I'm newer in a craft. What advice would you give me?
Huge thing, and I wrote this down. When you're trying to get into a craft, and say your goal is, like my goal was to be a production designer, head of the art department. In order to be a good head of department, you need to work all those other positions in the department so that you know what you're talking about when you are the leader. I worked in a scene shop. I worked painting. I worked construction. I worked shopping and set decorating and props and special effects.
Intentionally you did that. You knew you wanted to do that.
Yes. Yeah. So that I could learn what those specific fields do in relation to the overall art department. Yeah. And then as I moved up, now that I'm an art director, I know how to communicate with greens and what their priorities are as a department. I know, they want to keep the plants alive and watered. That's why they need to be on set at least every other day. They're not asking for that for all kinds of extra days and stuff. It's to keep the plants alive.
Yeah,
which
great example.
Most people don't think about.
So in a way, all of this experience that you get allows you to do your job better, but it also allows you to avoid a lot of conflict.
Yes.
So avoiding conflict, and the other side of that is having things go smoothly.
Yes.
But that takes experience. That's really what it is.
And the experience comes from, hopefully from observing other folks and how they do it well and stuff, but it's also going to come from making mistakes. I was on a job last year where we didn't have an actual greens person, and 3 very expensive hedges died, and the production had to take out an insurance claim to cover the loss and damage on that.
How much were they?
It was a big deal. They were like, value or whatever was like $3,000 per hedge.
Wow.
And 3 of them were dead.
Yeah. Wow.
Because they were like, oh no, just have a PA water them. And I'm like, I don't think we want to do that. But I didn't have the experience at that time to say, no, if we're doing greens, we're having a greens person. If you don't want to have a greens person, we got to come up with something else for this set.
So what gets us there, and this is why you're so in demand, is because all of these elements you've focused on and you've aligned with, people with, and you have mentors and you have given yourself this experience so that you understand it. So the end result is very smooth.
Yeah.
But the process to making the end result very smooth is making mistakes, working in all the different jobs. Yep. In order to make the mistakes and to get the experience, you have to be working.
You got to get in there. You got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to seek out these jobs as well.
Yeah.
Like you have to be like, okay, I would love to work in greens. Like you have another job. I would love to work in greens. I want to add that to my toolbox.
Yeah.
And I remember you did some office work and you're like, I want to work in the office to start learning that. You sought that out too.
Yep.
What job was that?
Office PAing.
Yes.
I learned so much just being in the production office, being quiet in my little corner and having all the producer conversations happening right next to me. Yeah. Getting to hear how they interact with the different departments, what they want from the different departments, all of that.
What did you learn? Can you remember some of these conversations?
It was this big pharmaceutical commercial or something, and the art department was building this beautiful big set, and it was like millions of dollars budget. Somehow the relationship between the producer and the production designer, from what I could see, was not great. It would be pretty cordial conversations, but I could tell underneath there was something going on.
Tenseness,
and
stress.
The production designer didn't have respect for the producer, and seemed the art department was trying to blow the budget on it and, get a bunch of money for something or other. It was a little murky and shady, but getting to see how those conversations went and how it ended up leading to the production manager on the project getting fired.
The production manager?
They threw the blame on him for not managing the budget well enough.
This sucks because he is working with art department and all the other departments, and art department is saying we need these things,
right?
And then all he can say is no. He's totally stuck in the middle. They have no options.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's really sad.
Not a position I would want to be in.
That's why that is a hard position. Yes.
Very hard, yes.
And the reason why it's hard is because you're trying to keep everybody happy, but you've got a dollar figure that that you've been given, that you didn't come up with that. You just have to you have to stick to that and that's your job. But then you've got what they actually want to shoot, and it costs something different. So you've got to either say no or push them to find another way, but there may not be another way, and then you can get blamed for it and get fired. Or production managers have to become very good at explaining, just like you have to explain to their producer that, this is why it happened. So this is why we need to increase the budget in this area, but I think I might be able to decrease it here, or,
Or we might have to go to the financier and ask for an overage in order to do this, you know? And then either they say yes or they say no.
Yeah.
What I do as an art director, too, is just managing that budget and, communicating with people like, why is this expense more than what we budgeted for? How can we adjust that or deal with it or something? And then having that information, so then I can go to the producers and say, we need more money for this in order to do what the director wants for this or something.
Yeah.
So then they either say yes or no, and then I go back to the other folks and say, they gave us the money, great, let's do it. Or they didn't approve it. We got to come up with something else. What might work for you instead?
What might work for you instead?
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, and it just seems so obvious and little the way that you say it. It's like, well, of course, that's the way you would do it.
Yeah, I'm not personally attached to it. It doesn't affect me at the end of the day in my life if we do A or B.
Yeah. You've just learned how to have the conversations to move the project forward and have somebody make that decision.
Yeah. Getting stuck in your own feelings about something or other, some piece of it or whatever, or not having an option that can be decided upon and just being like, well, we'll figure that out later or something. No.
Oh yeah. See, that's what a lot of people would want to do.
Yeah, it's easier in the moment.
For sure.
It's much easier, much less resistance to just be like, well, we're not sure, so we'll circle back or something. And sometimes there may be a reason for that, of course. They need to check with someone else who's not available right now or something. So I make a note and circle back with them tomorrow.
When you're in the production office and you observed the tension that was happening between the producer and the production designer, you're learning, that's what not to do.
Right. I don't want to have that tension with my producers.
So what were some of the things they were doing, like being demanding or just being negative or blaming? Or
they would just kind of walk into the office and be like, so we're spending this much on the flooring, whatever, something like that. And the producer would be like, well, why, this, that, whatever. It's like, well, because. They wouldn't even give reasons or anything. They would just say, this is what it is, and we already spent it.
So what's going on in that person's mind is just like, well, this is my job, and this is what it cost, and, you hired me, so
this is what we're doing.
This is what we're doing. And you guys have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Without thinking of options, right? Yeah. Or including them in some of the decision making.
Yeah. Because that's something I notice with my craftspeople, too, and my construction teams and stuff like that. I'll give them the plans and the drawings and, the vision of what we're trying to do. And usually if it's something technical, I'll give them the breakdowns of how I want it assembled and the notes and stuff and diagrams. But then as they're actually creating it and going through it, there's always going to be little things that come up. And the coordinators I work with, they're usually pretty creative folks on their own. So if it's something that, isn't seen or isn't, a vital piece or whatever, they'll make their own call on it and keep moving forward. Yeah. But if there's something that might affect the overall look of the thing or, might be a story point or something that needs to be considered, they get on the phone with me and they call me and they say, hey, so this has come up. We're wondering if you want the shelves to be this height or this height, something like that. Yeah. And then I, as the art director, who also has information of like what's going on the shelves, what else
you
needs
see
to
a
interact
wider,
with this, the big picture of it,
bigger picture.
And then I can make that call and let them know, like, yeah, do them this high, or okay, well, if we need to do it this way, then make this adjustment so that it will work for the overall project. So having people on my team that I can trust to make those calls, if it's something I don't need to be involved in, they'll just make the call and keep going. Because there's other folks who, as soon as they run into a roadblock and they don't know what to do, or whatever, it's like something, they just sit there.
Ah.
And the work stops.
So that's one of the things you're always thinking is keeping it moving, asking the right questions, so that you can keep it moving if you hit a roadblock.
Because that set dresser might not care that camera's coming in an hour and we need to be ready.
Oh yeah, they may not care, but you care because it's your ass.
Right.
Keeping it moving, make your boss look good.
Asking questions, because like you just said, your boss might not think of certain things or whatever, and I love when people who are working for me come to me and ask those questions.
Yeah?
It's like,
doesn't bother you?
My initial reaction in the moment might be a little bit frustrated, like, oh God, I'm working on 10 things right now and you're asking about this, like, okay. But I appreciate it. It's helpful because they make me look good. Because they remind me of like, oh, hey, what about this thing? Is that still happening or whatever? And I can be like, oh, yeah, go on that or something,
Yeah.
So they're being proactive about it and coming to me with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're thinking about what needs to be done in that day and they're trying to make it better. Okay, so there's those kind of questions. Should we be thinking, and is there a way to phrase this? Yeah, should we be thinking about, or do we want to?
Are there any updates on such and such? Are we still doing such and such?
Okay, very good, very good.
Those are great ways to phrase it.
And why is it not, what do you want?
Because then that puts that person on the spot, and if they have 10 things to think about, all they want is for you to go away. Really?
Yes.
So that's not, that's not helpful information.
Yeah.
And this is the same like going to the director and saying, are we still doing such and such for this character or something, whatever, checking in on that. Or whereas if you go and say, do you like this or this better for such and such, then they can look, have their reaction, and everyone gets to move on.
It's a much more teamwork-orientated way of approaching it.
While still respecting the hierarchy and the creative boundaries and stuff.
So
that's
good.
very important.
Yeah,
If you step over someone and then they don't feel respected, that's going to shut down a whole lot of other stuff down the road.
What I love to personally do is I love to, when I introduce myself to the directors, I tell them, yes, I've looked at the spot, I know what's happening, and if I have a specific question about a certain scene, I'll say, okay, how we're going to do this, how I plan to do this scene is this, or we can do it this way. We can do it, both ways. How does that sound to you?
What works for you?
What works for you? Is there anything that you'd like to add to that, or something that we might be missing, or that we want to add to it to make it even better? And they're like, no, I think you pretty much covered it. But they love that I lay out for them my plans and how I would do it, and then ask them, is there anything else that you would want to add to it that we should get to make it even better? And I'm excited about their project. And my face, I'm excited about it. I want to make it great for them. And that is just like, I cinched the deal. I started the day off right from that very moment. They're just like, I love her.
Yep.
So
that's a great point too, just setting that tone at the top of the day. Like I try to remember, especially on a long project like this feature where we're working with the same people for months or something, like still starting each day with each person with a good morning. I have a list of things that I need to get to and whatever and stuff, but like every time I hop on the phone with the producer in the first thing in the morning or something, that's how we start. We get that energy set.
Yes.
And then we get into the business and the work and the negotiations and stuff like that. Starting with that humanity and that little positive connection.
It's respect for yourself. It's respect for them.
Yeah.
It's establishing this is a way it's going to go, and I've got your back.
Being in the industry a while, there was certainly an old way of doing things, which was much more of the whack-a-mole kind of mentality.
Yeah.
But what I'm noticing more these days is that those folks don't get called as much. And they aren't on the projects as much anymore. And like, I'll give an example from this feature I'm on right now that we're wrapping up. My props lead, there's a couple scenes that required a fake weapon and such. And so she got the quote from the rental house that we usually go to, and it was a little high. There were a lot of weapons in this one scene and stuff. And so we also were referred to this guy who kind of, he's non-union, but he's got a cool collection and stuff and has done all kinds of stuff, whatever. He's in the biz. So she reached out to him and got a quote, and it was, much nicer to work with, money-wise. But this guy was being an asshole to her. He was just not respecting her and just using all kinds of foul language on the phone and just like, not great.
Yeah.
Not good feeling.
Yeah.
So, she got into it and we got it going and stuff. But then like over the course of the project, it became apparent to me that like that relationship was really just not working with that vendor. And it wasn't something that I wanted her to have to keep dealing with. That's not, she's got enough on her plate. She doesn't need to deal with this asshole. So I took that over, kind of, with communicating with her, of course. I didn't step in and take it. I, talked with her and we worked out how we were going to get through this for the rest of the project. And so then I became the point of contact for that guy. I'm the one who, goes and does the pickups and checks the stuff and everything, does all that, handles it. I'm a guy, so he seems to have more respect for me and stuff. And also I might not like it, but I can handle working with people who are more abrasive, I guess. I've developed a way of doing that so that they're able to get the job done.
How do you do that anyway?
Trying to find personal connections, keeping myself grounded, slowing it down for them. Like I said, if I get a call and someone's a mile a minute and it's all this crazy stuff, whatever, I let them get that first round out. And then they take a breath finally. They're gonna at some point. And I say, good morning. Kind of reset the whole thing.
This is how it's gonna go.
I'm gonna stay cool and take care of this.
Yeah.
Let's get down to the facts. When you're talking about the boomerang method, working non-union and union projects and bouncing back and forth with those, so that you can kind of plant the seeds for when you are on union projects. I think the thing I want to say about that is letting go of the ego. Because for me, when I was, moving up as a PA and then moving up into my art department stuff and all, and now I'm a production designer or whatever, I had to let go of that ego thing, and I found enjoyment in it sometimes. I'm not responsible here. I'm just a PA. This is great. Yeah. Kind of.
So you were working as a production designer and art director, and then you would go on these big union projects, and you would work as a PA.
Yeah.
You did this intentionally.
Yes.
And why?
So that I could see how those sets work, so I could meet the people on those sets. Oh, and we were talking about niches within like reality TV versus scripted content and stuff like that.
This is the boomerang method, Yeah.
You got to work in all of those.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you, okay, because you built your experience in non-union. So the boomerang method is to go to union sets, to build those connections and to build mentors and to keep in touch with these people and establish those union. They've been in the business for longer, okay. And then we've got all the non-union work, which is reality TV. It's promos.
It's music videos.
Pilots. Non-union TV shows. And non-union commercials.
There's been a lot more non-union work, at least here in LA. A lot of the union projects, they're definitely still here and going and stuff, but it's mostly like studio stuff at this point.
They don't see the commercials and all, and that's a huge sector. You only see, that's the thing about the business. You only see where you are.
Which is why diversifying and getting in everywhere is how you're really going to see what the overall business is and where you do want to fit into it.
And that's the purpose of the boomerang method,
Yeah.
is to get all of these different viewpoints, because it's very easy to just start working in one, and they keep calling you, and they keep calling
Those
you.
are your connections, and that's where you go, and that's where you do. But then, like, if that person leaves the industry or something, like, what do you do then?
Your entire career up until this point, including Marcel the Shell, was mostly in the non-union world because you were not union. And that is how you build a career. You have to do the non-union work to be able to get qualified to join the union anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And it's not an overnight thing. I mean, I've been production designing 7 years before I qualified to join the union. So it's, it takes some time. So, but I did have an opportunity to join the union a little earlier, actually right after Marcel, but I didn't feel like I was ready.
Oh, interesting. Why?
I didn't have the skills to be a union art director.
And the reason why that's important is because once you're union, now you're going to be getting union work.
Yeah.
So
people are going to expect you to perform at a union level.
Yeah, and you have to compete at the union level against other people that are in that
the rest
circle.
Of the union folks.
So you're like, I need more experience to be able to compete at that level.
Right.
Okay, very good.
And I don't want to be paying dues yet because I'm not making enough money at my level right now to make it worthwhile.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Okay, I like that. So you're like, and I've been doing very well in the non-union world. I have tons of connections in the union world. So, there's no big rush to get into the union stuff. I've got a pretty great life now, and I've got a great career right now, and I've got a lot of people that want to call me. And in a way, you're going to be leaving that non-union world once you turn union. So you have to be ready to make that transition.
Yeah. I need to have the connections. I need to know who I can call that is union as well. So, it's...
That's a good point. Yeah, your team has to all be union as well. Right. So you're really transitioning an entire department, an entire team.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be calling down all your regulars for your union shows.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say I had the confidence at that point to know that I would be joining the union and I would be at that level one day.
Yeah.
It was going to happen. It didn't need to happen today because it would happen at the right time. So that made peace with that.
Yeah.
And then a couple years later, an opportunity came up and I felt like it was time, and so I joined.
Yeah,
It was very simple, really.
It is very simple.
So
it's having a confident stance. It's you're confident in your career.
Yeah.
You're in charge of your career, so there's no big hurry to get into that. You're going to get that work. That is exactly where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll come.
So that's for everybody here. Okay.
Yeah.
Very
I would
good.
say continuing in that vein, I guess, with the boomerang, something that came up or came to mind, and talking about that requirement that once you're on union projects, the crew you hire has to be union as well. For me, in art department, because it can be such a massive crew that you need for certain projects, that was something that I held off joining the union for, and that I did work on union art departments as an art PA, so that then I could meet all those folks. I could meet union set designers and graphic designers and union construction coordinators and painters and all. And now that I'm a union art director, I'm calling those people. Meet the folks on the union shoots, because those are going to be the people you're calling once you're in the union to work on your projects.
We often think that, I'm going to go on union shoots to meet people so that they can hire me. When, in fact, when you are a go-getter that knows where you're going and you know that you're going to be getting onto these union sets, you're actually thinking about, I'm going here to find the best people that I'm going to hire once I am in this position.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love when I get to do that, when I get to call my union folks and whatever and be like, hey, remember when I was art PAing on that thing? Well, I have a project now. I'd love to bring you on. It's so fun.
Yeah, I mean, how I would say, I would be like, you're amazing. You're so great. I'd like your information. Sometime I'm sure that we're going to work together. yeah, I'd love to work with you in the future.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh wow, well you're much lower level right now, but they're like, okay, just the fact that he asked that question, I'm going to give him my information.
Yeah.
Okay, so the boomerang method is going on union sets to meet people, to find mentors,
as a TA,
as a product. The boomerang method is to go on big union sets as a production assistant, because you cannot work in a craft until you're in the union. That's why it's a union set.
Yeah.
To learn, to be around the big sets, to see how the big sets operate, and to make those connections, find people that you're going to work with in the future for your team, as well as getting their information now and developing those relationships while you work in the non-union world, and then staying in touch with them all these years for when you're ready to go back and join the union. Then the other half of it is going on to non-union sets, like music videos, like promos, like TV shows, like commercials that are non-union, which is probably
indie
80%. And indie features, probably 80% of the work. And getting your experience there, getting good there.
Getting your credits.
Getting your
when
credits.
you do join the union. Yep.
And you intentionally go back and forth throughout the years. You don't just want to stay in one, because then you'll only have one set of connections. It really would stop you from being able to start your career in the union, because you don't have any connections. You don't have any team.
Right.
That's why it's important.
Yeah, and that's why I held off joining the union when the initial opportunity presented itself. I didn't feel like I had enough of a team to be able to take union jobs and to deliver. So I held off for a couple of years, and once I did feel I was ready, when the opportunity presented itself, I went for it.
So you built that team for when you became union. And the team that you were working with before on the non-union projects,
a bunch of them are union now,
and
so I still get to call them.
They came with you. Okay, that's good.
So they were moving up as well, which is wonderful.
Yes, and that is the whole point, is everybody moves up. The best people move up together. And you tell them, hey, I'm going to be joining soon, so you better join as well. Or start getting your stuff together so that you're able to qualify and join.
Really what happened was a bunch of my friends were getting in their unions as well, and then I was like, okay, enough of my folks are in the unions at this point. I can join and hire them as union folks now.
I see.
Yeah.
So people in the art department, as well as in other departments as well, like other producers and other like DPs, were all moving into union work. Okay, this is a great point as well then. So everybody got their experience in the non-union world and did a bunch of work and worked together and established those relationships. And then the natural progression of people that are go-getters is to join the union and start moving into that higher pay, bigger budget stuff. Now, you intentionally did production assistant work on union sets during this process and worked in non-union world back and forth. And how did that benefit you?
I mean, like you said, getting to see how a union set works before I'm even at that level and make those connections. I think it also benefited me because it kind of gave me a check. I was working as a production designer and head of department in the non-union world, but then when I'm working as a PA and stuff, I enjoyed it because it was a little more relaxed for me. I didn't have to be thinking about all these details and this and that and everything else. I just had to make sure people had water and the trash was taken out, and then go see who needs help and what connections I can build and stuff.
It's a great environment to learn when you can just be a cat on the
and you can
side
just
of the
kind of observe
room
around you and stuff, Like, it's great for watching, I mean, if you're a PA and you have some downtime, don't sit there on your phone playing games or something.
No.
Watch. Ask what's happening. What's that equipment? Why are you doing this kind of stuff? It's an opportunity.
Yeah. And one of your first opportunities was somebody called you for a
Beyonce video. Yeah. This friend of mine who knows me as a production designer at this point and stuff, but they had a friend reach out, needed some PAs for a Beyonce video, and they know I like Beyonce, so they were like, do you want to do this? Is this even of interest? And I'm like, heck yeah, I'm free those days, let's do it.
So the ego thing, you had to put your ego behind you for that.
Yes, yeah, I had to be like, today I'm a PA. People don't know me or what I do or whatever, they just see a production assistant. That's my role today. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
You know, I know I'm a designer and what I do and whatever and all, but I'm not here for validation on that today.
Yeah.
I'm here to learn and make connections and grow.
And you hung out with the art department and helped them? Yeah.
Yeah. Got to meet the designer and, you know, start forming that connection. And now years later, he and I are both in the union. I saw him at the awards show and congratulated him. So I'm sure we're going to be working together at some point here soon.
Yeah.
So, and now I'm comfortable being like, hey, if you need an art director, I'm happy to help. You know,
you can work with him.
Back then, when I was where I was at, I didn't have the skills or anything to even be able to offer myself.
But the interesting thing was you had the confidence that you were going in that direction. You knew that, so that's why you got the names and numbers of the people in that department. Now tell us a little bit about that.
You know, it's casual, on set, kind of just building a connection and stuff, and you know, starting that by offering to help, and then as you're helping do whatever the thing is, you chat with the person, and how'd you get into the business, and oh, that's great, and what else do you do, what do you have coming up, kind of stuff. Yeah, by the end of it, you've got their numbers, and you follow up later, and you keep working with these folks.
And your intention on that job was like, I want to find some of the best people so that when I when I get to be union, I can call them to be part of my team.
Yeah, working different positions within your department to gain knowledge so that when you are at the top of the department, if you're the cinematographer, if you're the production designer, if you're the director, you should know what you're talking about with these people, and when you're trying to communicate your vision or what you want and stuff.
Very helpful to work in all the different jobs inside a department, to know that department inside out.
Yeah.
What kind of jobs have you done inside the art department?
For art department, I mean, I definitely started as an art PA, and that's kind of generalized, especially on a non-union project. You're doing all kinds of things. But I also worked in scene shops, construction, paint department, greens. I worked as a shopper and buyer for set deck. I worked as a lead person and as a set decorator, so kind of all within that. I've done a bunch of gigs as a props person and assistant props person, stuff like that. Just learning all those different parts of it. So that now when I'm art directing, I know how to communicate with each of those folks and kind of what their priorities are and what their goals are and what they need to do their jobs. I'm able to be ahead of it and provide that for them instead of just reacting when they come to me and need something or whatever.
You want to understand all of the elements of what it means to make the art department, the production design goes super smooth.
So that the project keeps going.
Yeah.
I don't know if we caught that in the last one.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
The project to keep going.
No matter what job you want to do in this business, you mentioned that it's really good to work in all of the jobs leading up to that job so that you know all of the jobs. And so you think that you should do that. You shouldn't just go jumping to the highest job.
No. Jump in the deep end like that, you're going to be overwhelmed. People aren't going to trust you. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, because you don't have the experience yet.
Yeah.
So how you get the experience is by working in all of these other jobs, like you mentioned. Yeah. And you don't have to stay in them forever, though. No. You're just doing it to get experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another really good point.
Certain people find that they do really love that.
Sure, you don't always have to go to the top.
Doing greens.
Yeah.
They get into that, and that's where they stay, and they love it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's awesome for them, too.
Yeah.
So, but it's not required.
No, you can stay. I mean, people have their whole career as a boom operator or as a assistant camera.
Especially if you're starting out as a PA, get experience in all the departments.
So professional project strategy, let me define this for you, and then you can just see if there's anything that comes to mind. This is where you are working on professional sets, could be any position, could be, let's just say, as a production assistant, but you know you want to get into a certain department. And you seek out people that are filmmakers on set that you can get experience doing that craft. Like say you want to do hair, you talk to, hey, who's got a project? I'd love to do hair on it. Or you want to act in it, or you want to get experience as a set dresser. You're like, I want to get into the art department. I'm a PA. I need to be able to say, hey, I'm also set dressing. So how am I going to get that? You find people on set that are already doing projects, and you work on it as a set dresser or as an art director.
Yeah.
So have you done a ton of these? I bet you have.
Quite a few, yeah. Tamara referred me to it.
Oh, yeah,
actually.
I love it. Tamara, who's Friends in Film.
Yes, yeah. One of my OG mentors. She connected me with this director, writer guy, because she wasn't available for a project. It was very low budget, but I think he paid us each like $60 a day or something, a little.
What'd you do on it?
Acknowledgement, at least. I was a production designer.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow.
Well, no, I think the first project with him, I was the wardrobe supervisor, because Tamara had designed the costumes and stuff. There was a separate production designer, whatever. But I was on that and mentioned to him that I was getting more into production design and art department. So then his next project, he brought me in as the production designer.
Interesting. So so you just get in the door on any professional project, and then you establish a relationship and you tell them, hey, on your next one, because they're probably going to have a next one.
Yeah.
The people that are building their career are building their career, and and how they build their career, project for project for project. So you find these people, and that's how you build your career alongside them.
Yes.
You get in the door with people that are doing projects for their own career.
Yeah.
Those are good people because they are motivated with their own career. That means they're going to have a lot more projects in the future, and they are making connections. It's almost like you're piggybacking on people's brilliance and motivation, and then you get involved with them, form that relationship.
Make them look good.
Make them look good.
You look good. Yeah.
And at the same time, they are getting hired by other projects too.
Yes.
So TV shows, feature films, and so then you get all of that work with them. And since you've helped somebody and done a favor for them, then that's also a very special relationship as well.
I guess one other thing I should touch on, the peer-to-peer list. I've noticed some, and I guess this is probably specific to production designers, but could be applied elsewhere as well. A lot of production designers kind of see each other kind of as competition almost.
Oh, yeah.
There's kind of a competitive edge to it. I would advise against that, because these are your fellow workers, and like, if you can't take a job, you need to be able to refer someone else who's good to reflect well on you. Something to keep in mind as you're moving up.
This is a beautiful point.
Art direct for other designers and stuff, and see who you like, who does good work and stuff, and then you're able to refer them, they refer you. It's a good relationship and network to build and to grow, as opposed to kind of like get in there and compete against or something.
It is you just touched on a topic that is so huge, because you'll see PAs competing with each other trying to stand out. And and all departments do it, and it is human nature. So this is why we want to talk about this, because it's human nature to be like, in that scarcity mindset, but that's what that is.
Right.
It's like, hey, if I champion you, that means I might not get something. But we actually, if we are champion for each other, then we're all gonna benefit from it.
Yeah.
If you're confident in your ability to create value, what makes you confident is just simply how you're thinking about yourself and creating that value. Then you know that you're going to win, you know that you're going to work, and you know that there are other great people out there too. And you can become a better version of yourself if you have other people that are also in on your team and in on the whole thing with you.
Yes.
If you have the scarcity, just catch yourself with it and just say, oh, I'm just coming from my lower self, a lower part of me.
Let me make a little shift here.
Yeah. We all win. Thanks so much for listening. And if you want to take your career to the next level in the film industry, go to friendsinfilm.com/join. That's friendsinfilm.com/join. You can sign up for our mini course, learn about the A-list model, and then you can take it all the way and do the A-list program. So that's friendsinfilm.com/join. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day, everybody.